All right, I'm here with Armchair Violence.
Sup?
So, self-defense versus combat sports is a huge dichotomy.
Yes.
In the martial arts, you have people on both sides,
And they're all wrong.
yeah, and they're probably wrong, and they're generally saying that they're non-overlapping magisteria, meaning the Venn diagram doesn't touch. There is no Venn diagram. It's just two circles.
Yeah.
Two circles that don't touch. Okay. I would say that the circle is an overlapping circle.
Yeah.
Right. There is some things that you do specifically for sport that you would not do for self-defense,
yeah.
and then vice versa. Okay. But let's play devil's advocate here. I will be the combat sports guy. You be the self-defense guy.
All right.
Okay. For funsies.
Yeah. I'm usually the combat sports guy, so
Yeah.
this is fun for me.
Well, because everyone, your channel, everyone always puts you on that side because you talk about self-defense, basically being combat sports or fighting, right?
I can see how I would be accused of that, yes.
Yes. So, that's what we're going to do. From your Pillars video,
Yes.
can you explain that real quick to my audience?
Yeah, real briefly, I did a video on the 3 pillars of being able to fight. You have to have athleticism, you have to have skills, and you have to have experience doing things under live pressure. And if you don't have any 3 of those things, you can't fight.
Okay, so when you say fight,
Yep.
what do you mean?
So I mean, like, obviously combat sports would count as a fight.
Okay.
And then self-defense is a fight, depends on how you define it. Because, like, self-defense is not putting yourself in dangerous situations. Yes, but
I love that argument.
I like it's correct. But one, that's really easy. I'm not in a dangerous situation right now.
I don't know. I am next to you.
I'm a dangerous man. And 2, that's boring. Because like you want to live your life, and sometimes, depending on how you live your life, you might be in a dangerous situation. So, like,
Fair.
fighting is when the first step of self-defense has failed.
Okay, which is the not being there.
Oh yeah,
right?
avoiding the fight.
Well, I feel like avoiding the fight, insofar as like a self-defense standpoint, right, is just being like aware of your surroundings, generally avoiding areas that would maybe be inclined to have that happen.
If you're at home with the doors locked, you're pretty safe.
You're safe.
If you're in the parking lot of the Waffle House at 3 a.m. hanging out with the Crips, you're in a very bad place.
Most of the time, and when I'm at Waffle House at 3 in the morning, it's just because I'm eating.
Yeah, but Waffle House itself is kind of the nexus of all crime.
I don't know about that. They have good waffles, man.
They got good waffles.
It's hibachi of the South. You can't go wrong with waffles.
I go to Waffle House for hash browns and knife wounds.
Oh, okay.
That's why I go to Waffle House.
I go to Waffle House because the All-Star is pretty cheap. Another thing to kind of piggyback on the self-defense, like avoiding the fight, is because I love that. I just avoid the fight. Sometimes you just can't avoid a fight, right? And secondary to that, like there's stages of avoiding a fight. If you're in a bad spot, like you're at a bar and it's rowdy, right? You can always de-escalate to a point.
Yeah.
There becomes a line which becomes unpassable, right?
And you can't de-escalate against anyone because some people just want to watch the world burn.
Yeah, and Tim Tackett talked about it really well. He called it verbal judo.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah, and it's really good. If you watch the video, he's really good at it. But there is limit. It's not saying it's like this is how you win all fights. It's how you win all like self-defense scenarios. It is just a singular part of it, which is interesting. And Tim Tackett's an old Jeet Kune Do guy.
And so, like, the first step of self-defense is don't get in the fight.
Yeah.
But there's times where that will just fail.
Yes.
And then there's times where you want to be in the fight. And what people are immediately thinking is like, oh, I would never just start a fight. If your wife is being raped, you want to start a fight.
Boy, that escalated quickly.
What is experience to you?
So experience is you have to have done the thing under pressure.
So this is where I think a lot of people get really confused. As a combat sports person, saying putting it under pressure is like hard sparring, hard rolling, right? Using the techniques. But like self-defense, like what does that encompass?
What does self-defense encompass, or
what
how does it relate to experience?
Yeah, how does it relate to gaining experience?
So the point of experience is not to do it really hard. And I've seen some traditional martial artists just like do a combo on mitts, but like really hard. They're like, that's pressure testing. That's not pressure testing.
That's not pressure testing.
Pressure testing is when it's competitive.
Yeah.
It's
not non-compliance.
Yeah, it's non-compliant. That's not I'm doing a move to you and you have to make it challenging for me to do it,
Yeah.
that means I'm trying to win and you're trying to win, and it's a free-flowing competitive environment where nothing's scripted.
Right. So it's sparring.
It's sparring, yes.
Okay. I think that's where people get confused, because like people will say, well, like, yeah, hitting a mitt or
Yeah,
is
that's not experience.
Yeah, so when you have experience, right, that doesn't mean go out to the Waffle House at 3 in the morning and
Right.
expect to fight people to build up your experience points there. It's probably not a good idea, because the problem with street fights or self-defense is that the stakes are so high, right, that like if you lose, the consequences could be disastrous.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, if you lose in a combat sports thing, oh, I lost.
Yeah.
Maybe you get injured.
Especially in light sparring, it's just, I got outpointed. It's scaffolding. Like, you don't want to start gaining experience in the highest risk environment. Like, even just for combat sports, you would not start gaining experience in a professional match.
Yeah, no, that's not ideal.
No, you would never do that. You would light spar,
Yeah.
and you would light spar some more, and then you would hard spar a couple times, and then you would have like a points match.
Yeah.
Like, there's scaffolding for experience to do it safely.
Yeah, I agree completely. Does combat sports count as experience towards self-defense?
Yes.
Oh,
Because...
okay. End the video time. Go ahead.
I would say yes, because like there's a lot of steps to self-defense of making decisions in a novel environment, for scenario training, de-escalating the situation, avoiding the situation. But once the fight has happened, it's not the same as combat sports or MMA, but it's really close.
Yeah, and that's a lot of self-defense people don't like what you just said.
I know they don't, but what are they going to do, beat me up?
They got to find you first.
Yeah, they would have to know actual martial arts first.
Fair. So, yeah, I agree 100%.
Yeah.
Because if we look at someone like law enforcement, right, that train jujitsu, anecdotally, they always say as soon as they lay hands on them, it like switches in their brain to like jujitsu, and then they do the jujitsu moves, right?
Yes.
That they practice in a gym doing regular sport ass jujitsu, and it's not even like special like self-defense jujitsu. So yeah, people don't like that, but it's true. Like,
yeah,
Muay Thai clinching is probably one of the best things you can do self-defense wise, because people will charge at you and hold on to you, and if you know how to clinch and frame and push in a standing environment like Greco, right?
Yeah.
Like you can really go far with it, to where if someone grabs you, you're like, oh my god. Instead of doing some convoluted elbow in here, scoop, get that, you can just go, oh, clinch, and now you have all that experience kneeing your buddies. Chances are the person in the street's never been kneed in their life, and then just go, and then they're, oh.
Yeah, and it's like clinching and things like that is terrifying if you haven't done it in combat sports.
Yeah.
But when you have that experience doing it in combat sports, super freaking easy.
Yeah.
Especially against someone that's brand new and has not done it yet.
Has not done it, right? Like even people that have done it, like sometimes if you have that marked skill advantage,
yeah,
it's just like, oh, okay, neat, because they can't stop it. It's super fun. If you guys do like general kickboxing or Kali or anything like that, if you're not clinching in some regard, stop what you're doing after this video, go look up on how to clinch, and then come back, and then you'll thank us.
Yeah, it's a game changer. There are a lot of people that can very easily outstrike me, and I clinch them, and they have no idea.
And they can't do it. And like it's one of those things, because I'm very good on the outside, but you clinch me, I have jiu-jitsu brain. So I want to pull guard violently, which is not self-defense.
No,
right?
I have wrestler brain, so I can like stay up.
Yeah. I just like, oh, you grab me, let's go. And that's what I think is really interesting about self-defense people, is they will look at combat sports and say, oh, this doesn't work because it's not the time or not the right techniques and things like that. But it is. It's just a matter of knowing when to use those techniques. But the experience of actually doing non-compliance and sparring, that's what you really get out of combat sports for self-defense.
And self-defense versus combat sports, like in the fight in self-defense, it is different.
Yes.
Because like there's not as many hard rules.
Yes.
But it's usually way easier because the person you're fighting is generally dumb and doesn't know how to fight. So yeah, they can kick you in the nuts, they can try and go for your eyes, but you're already better at kicking, you're already better at positional clinching and fighting, and so usually you can just do it to them way better.
Yeah. So what move? Jeet Kune Do has some of them that some of the Jeet Kune Do practitioners say, and that the Jeet Kune Do itself is only limited to those moves, so you can't Spartan can't do it.
Laws or things like that.
Which are very good.
They can work, yes. But there is like a whole matter of escalation for that. I have videos with Icy Mike addressing that question.
Yeah.
And when you actually watch street fight videos, things like biting and eye gouge and whatnot are not super common because it does bring the fight to a very different place than most people most people like after your wallet or something want to go.
Yeah. They normally just want your money.
Yeah, or
Right,
like if they're in a fight in the bar, they just want to rough you up. They want pride. If they're a mugger, they're after your wallet. Like, nobody wants to create a fight to the death. Because if you try and gouge my eyes out or try and bite me, and I start winning, you're gonna die.
Yeah, right. It's always a really interesting point, a correlation with MMA, right? The rule is if you're on the bottom, you never strike the person on top. Right? Because you just brought a whole new level of problems to the person.
Because they can strike you better. They're on top.
They have gravity and things. And that's what's really, that's more of an old school like thing, but it probably still remains true for the most part, right? I don't want to be striking upwards at an opponent and then they're just like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I have all that range of motion where I'm limited, especially if my head's in the corner of the cage trying to like hit.
So I would say knowing when to deal with a bite, like just kind of when to expect something like a bite or an eye gouge or a nut kick coming could be helpful. Is that integral to being able to fight? No, probably not.
Right.
But also, you can kind of do that sparring, like if you're rolling in jiu-jitsu. We did that with JD one time. I put an armbar on JD and he tried to bite his way out of it, just to throw me off, just as practice for me. And the first time he did it, it did throw me off. Because I did not see it coming. The second time he did it, it did not work as well. Because now I had switched my brain into that gear.
Yes.
I would actually say the things that are most important to a self-defense kind of fight that you really don't get from combat sports is weapon defense.
Yeah, you generally don't.
Right.
Which is why I recommend you train something like HEMA or Kali, whereas actually you're fighting. But in my problem with those two arts, without getting too deep into it and me getting myself in trouble, is that a lot of them are like dueling, which in like Kali's offense, hopefully I would have a knife if they pull a knife.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, but one of us is going to bleed and go to jail or die.
Often.
Whereas like but a lot of Kali has the empty hand versus the knife. It's the stick that complicates things. You have some HEMA experience, yeah?
A little bit.
Like a little bit, just enough to make an educated opinion.
Yeah, fair enough.
It's the internet, no one cares, right? So yeah, I would agree. You need to add some weapons training. And another thing to think about it, even if it's like a blunt weapon or a sharp edge weapon, is a firing weapon, right?
Yeah.
Like I think, especially in America, the United States, we're very lucky that we have the amendment that we have to be able to protect ourselves with bear arms, and that's what it says, right?
Technically, you're not wrong.
But it's actually to defend yourself with a gun. Other countries like Japan, for example, where Prime Minister Abe just got assassinated with a homemade gun.
Yeah.
Right? So it's one of those things where it's like, generally though, you're not going to have to defend yourself with a gun or have someone have a gun against you.
Yeah, it would be rare.
It would be very rare.
And it's not like, for anyone that doesn't live in America, we're not getting accosted by guns every other day. That's not how America works. But in theory, more people have them.
Yeah, like it's one of those things statistically where there's a lot of people have them. You know, I think especially the further south you go, the closer to the equator you go, the more guns there are. You have Florida and Texas to thank for that. We are in neither of those places. Could you train combat sports exclusively and be okay in self-defense? I think the answer is yes.
Yeah.
With an asterisk of weapons.
And also, I would say it's not that you can't get weapon defense from combat sports, it's that you currently don't.
Yeah.
We could make a combat sport that has weapon defense. Like, we can have, you know, training knives and have a knife fighting combat sport. But we could absolutely make that. It's just not currently a thing that exists outside of very local gym
niche
sparring
things.
stuff.
Like for example, I know in Philippines, which would make sense, they actually have MMA matches with sticks. And stick versus stick, and like they wear some protection like over the head, but the rest of their body is fully exposed, so you go whack, and it's terrifying. Like if you don't like Google that, good luck.
Yeah.
And then I know Eli Knight, who's been on the channel, he and Aaron Giannetti have created knife control concepts, which is basically jiu-jitsu with a knife. and I know Kali has it as well. I'm not trying to disparage Kali from that, but just kind of more modern day people, what they're doing over here is that's one of the examples. And from what I have seen of it, it's really solid.
Okay.
So, you know, being able to add that in, and like that's one thing I do like about Kali and Hemo, right? Is that you can actually fight each other with the various weapons. And it makes it entertaining. And I feel like people also forget this. This will be my last point, and I want your take on it.
Okay.
Training and self-defense is important, sure. If that's what your goal is, to train for self-defense, that's very, very like good to know as a gym owner. Like, okay, this is what you're looking for. But here's the problem: is some people feel like that self-defense training is not fun. I say it's supposed to be fun, otherwise you wouldn't continue to do it.
Right.
What's your take?
I mean, I would say it depends on how you do the self-defense training.
Ryan Hoover, it depends.
Because
that's all he says.
And you know what? If you ask anyone knowledgeable in a subject a question about that subject and you don't know anything about it, their answer is always going to be depends, because you don't know enough to ask a good question.
Yeah, it's not so let me rephrase it so we can get a different thing. Actually, no, I won't.
Well, yeah, because I can specify that it depends on how you're training self-defense.
Right.
If you're enduring a lecture on what parts of town you should visit, and you know, like what kind of clothes you should wear to make yourself less a victim, like, you know, like not wearing fancy bling so you're not going to get mugged, things like, not doing rape apology.
Oh, okay. I was like, what are we doing? Where are we going?
No,
okay, good.
I know what I meant. Yeah, like, you know, how not to stand out, how not to be targeted by muggers and things like that.
Sure.
That's freaking boring.
Yes.
That's literally just an academic lecture.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to feel like you're in school. If you're doing live scenario training where you're actually making choices in a simulated environment, that's actually really entertaining. Yeah. It's actually like really nerve-wracking the first few times you do it.
Again, that Sensei Seth video, he was wrecked.
Yes.
And he's not an unathletic person that doesn't spar and roll and do all that stuff.
He's a surprisingly fast heavyweight.
Yeah, and like watching him being like kind of standing there like after that, and I had it watching the video. This is just an ad for Sensei Seth. Yeah, those are all very, like, the situation training is super fun. Lectures are very boring. And like the actual training itself, like normal combat sports training, if you're using that in a self-defense lens, should be entertaining. You should be, like, I'm not saying it's not hard. People think when they say fun that it automatically makes it not hard. And that's not what I'm saying. Whenever I say, because I train for fun. I train because I like to do it. I don't do it because it's not hard. Like, if I beat up everybody and everyone's just going really easy on me, it wouldn't be fun. Like, I'm not wired that way. Some people are. I'm not saying who or not, but like, for me, if I'm not being challenged, if I'm not being pushed, I'm not having any fun. And if I'm just the best at everything, then it's lame. And that's where I get really like disjointed about it, because people are like, it's not supposed to be fun, it's supposed to be hard. That's not. That's different. That's not the antonym to fun. It's not hard. It's not fun.
I think in theory a well-constructed self-defense course or martial art or whatever would be more fun than combat sports. Yeah. Because like in combat sports you have a rule set, and you have to follow that, and you have to work and be creative within that rule set. But in a realistic self-defense situation, the point of everyone in the class is come up with a new thing. Like, invent a new situation. Give us a new dilemma to solve. We're not even just physical dilemmas of, you know, how do you deal with this situation in a fighting aspect, but also like new ethical dilemmas like, should I be able to hit them off of this? And then you have to like look at all sorts of different approaches. You have to look at the legal aspect, the moral aspect, the physical aspect. And like, I mean, maybe I'm just a freaking nerd, but to me that's really fun.
I think it's just you. All right, well, I appreciate it, dude.
Good.
You guys know